Let's read some more scary stories that were sent to us. When I was about 7 to 8 years old, my family and I used to live in a very small town in the Appalachian Mountains on the Canadian side. My mom is a huge believer in everything paranormal, so when she told me this story, I knew it was true. Anyways, my mom loved to take long walks in the forest with our dog who's now passed away. He was a husky Malamute. And one day when she was walking in the forest not far from our house, she got a very unsettling feeling and she got chills even though it was very hot that day. That day, our dog started barking and growling at something, so my mom unleashed him so he could be able to protect her. When she unleashed him, he ran into the woods and ran back just as fast. When my mom looked over her shoulder to her right, she saw what appeared to be herself, but a weird version of herself. Who she saw had ginger long hair in 2 braids, and it looked just like her, and she was looking directly at my mom. When she saw that thing, she ran as fast as she could and got home with our dog. She was so scared and shocked that night, she couldn't even close her eyes. About a month or 2 after that happened, my mom and dad told me and my siblings that we had to move. We didn't understand why, but we agreed. About a year after moving, I asked her why we moved because she loved that house. And it was then that she told me what happened to her in the forest, and I immediately started to feel weird because I never felt okay in those woods. When I was about 10 or 11, I was ill and did not go to school one day. My parents both worked and couldn't get the day off, so they told me to just stay in the house and don't answer the door to anyone. I was sitting watching TV in the front room that has a big bay window that looks out onto the street, which is a main road with a row of shops across the road. I felt awkward with all of the people walking past, so I decided to shut the curtain slightly, and for some reason, as I did, I noticed this man in his late 40s, early 50s with a beard and glasses, wearing a green knitted jumper. Something about him walking past just seemed strange, but not enough to play on my mind until he walked past again 10 minutes later in the same direction, as if he had just looped around the block. 10 minutes later, he appeared again and stopped at the edge of the driveway for about 30 seconds looking at the window. He then proceeded to the door looking in the window as he walked by. He knocked on the door a few times, but something told me not to answer. He then came to the window, banging on it and saying something, but I couldn't make it out. I then noticed the realization on his face that there was a back door. My parents never locked the back door, so the dog could come in and out as he pleased. I ran through the kitchen, and within seconds of locking the door, the handle started turning and he started banging on the door. I curled up in a ball on the floor in fear, and he started trying to open windows and eventually left about 30 minutes later. I dread to think what could have happened if I had not remembered the back door was unlocked. My cousin and his wife and their infant son had lived in their house for about 5 years. His wife left home to drop the baby off at daycare before work, but realized she had left her phone at home. Entering the house, she turned the corner to the hallway and nearly ran into the drop-down attic ladder, which was fully extended. They never used the attic as it was filled with loose insulation, and my cousin had left for work hours earlier. She quietly left the house, drove around the corner, and called the police. When the police investigated, they found a short-range transmitter connected to several cameras hidden throughout their home. The light fixture in the shower, the ceiling fan above their bed, even a pinhole in the nursery were sending videos to a nearby location. Their neighbor a few houses away had been given a key by the prior owners and installed surveillance equipment once he knew their schedule. My cousin's wife walked in on him updating his equipment, but he forgot something at his house and left to get it when she walked in. He had been watching them for years. That is freaking insane. This story happened when I was younger. We live in a busy city here in the Philippines. We lived in an old 2-story house that had been renovated to look more modern. When my sister was 4 or 5 years old, my grandma would often hear my sister laughing by herself, and my grandma would also get severely sick often. One time, my parents were hanging out with their friends in our living room, and my mom shouted at me, "Stop running, you might fall." My mom swore she saw me running behind the couch, but when I answered, "What?" from upstairs, my mom got silent. I still remember the feeling I got when my mom told me about this. Fast forward to my early teens, I was about 16 years old at the time. It was my turn to clean the house, and I was dreading mopping our stairs. For context, our stairs are made of solid wood, and every night around midnight, I would always hear our wooden stairs creaking like someone was standing on them. Anyway, I went to clean the stairs, and I had about 6 to 8 steps left. What I saw made my body freeze. The steps leading to our second floor were dark, and I saw 2 dirty-looking feet standing on one of the stairs I was just about to mop. I remember saying, "The water is dirty," acting like I needed to change the mop water, hoping it wouldn't notice I saw it. I told my mother about what happened, and she agreed that there was really something wrong with our house. We moved to a new neighborhood a few years later into an apartment. My first time going to it, I was helping my mom move stuff in. I remember getting chills when I was moving some stuff inside, and in the corner of my eye, I saw a dark figure walking past our screen door. I told my mom about this, and she said, "Let's just endure it. We live in a new house now, so let's see how this new life turns out." Freshman year of college, I was semi-dreaming. In this dream, I'm sitting on a bench with a hallway in front of me. My wife was next to me. Mind you, I have no wife and no girlfriend. Nonetheless, I knew this was my wife. She was holding our child. At the end of the hallway, there was a mirror. I look up at the mirror, see my wife and child there. I look back down at my baby. The baby turned to charcoal and blew away in front of my eyes. I looked back into the mirror, and there was a wispy old woman looking back into my eyes. Then, while making eye contact, she screamed the most blood-curdling scream I could ever imagine. I woke up completely unable to move. I was terrified. This happened in December last year. I was visiting my uncle in northern Minnesota near the Canadian border. He's the kind of guy who prefers solitude, lives in a cabin deep in the woods, no close neighbors, just the trees and whatever lives in them. I never minded visiting. I like the quiet, but after that night, I don't think I'll ever go back. It was the coldest night of the year, at least negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit. My uncle had gone into town for supplies, so I was alone. The cabin was warm, the fire crackling, and I was scrolling on my phone when I heard it. Something moving outside. Not footsteps, more like a dragging sound. Slow, deliberate. At first I thought it was the wind, but then came a knock. Not at the door, at the window. My uncle's nearest neighbor was miles away, and no sane person would be out in the cold. The knocking came again. I reached for my flashlight and shined it through the window. I wish I hadn't. There was something standing just beyond the tree line. It was tall, at least 7 or 8 feet, but emaciated, with long, bony limbs. Its skin looked frostbitten, almost blackened, and its eyes were glowing, not reflecting light, glowing on their own. I should have looked away. I should have closed the curtains, but I was frozen, staring, unable to breathe. And then it smiled. Its teeth were too many, too sharp, stretching across its face. It opened its mouth wider than any human should, and then it spoke. "Let me in." The voice didn't match the body. It sounded wrong, too deep, too garbled. I ran. I grabbed my uncle's rifle, locked the door, and backed into the farthest corner of the room. The knocking stopped, but I could hear it scraping against the walls outside, slow and patient, like it had all of the time in the world. I sat there for what felt like hours, rifle shaking in my hands, until my uncle finally came back. The second his headlights swept across the trees, the noises stopped. He found me pale, sweating, and gripping the rifle like my life depended on it. I told him everything. He didn't say a word, just nodded and checked around the cabin. When he came back, he looked unsettled. "There are no tracks in the snow," he said. "Nothing." That was impossible. I heard it and I saw it, but there was nothing outside. No footprints, no marks on the walls, just the untouched snow and the silent watching trees. I left the next morning and haven't been back since. My uncle still lives there, but he told me something before I left. If you ever hear it again, don't look, and whatever you do, never let it in. I haven't told anyone else this story until now, but I know what I saw, and I know it's still out there. Years ago at one of my first jobs, a colleague told me a story. The night before, she had gone out for some drinks, and on the way home, she had got off the bus and was walking down her road to her house. A taxi pulled up alongside her, and the driver told her to get in the car. She obviously said no. He then said to her, "Call whoever you want while you're in the car, but please please just get in and I'll explain. So she got in. Turns out, walking behind her was a topless guy with no shoes on and a machete in his hand. Cab driver had already called the police, but then saw my colleague, so he stopped to look after her.
Yo, buckle up, because I'm about to tell y'all a story of my haunted ass house. Because some fucking shit's been going on around here, and while everybody else is playing the game of firework or gunshot, I'm playing the game of firework or supernatural paranormal spirit. Okay? Because last night, well, it's July 4th now, because it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, but on July 2nd, at like 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, because I got off work at 9:30, I was doing my dishes. And before I connected my phone to my Bluetooth speaker, I hear 4 or 5 loud knocks that sound like they are coming from down my hallway. And then the sound afterwards, after the 4 or 5 knocks, was what I could only describe as like if something like growled and also scratched something at the exact same time. That is what it sounded like. It was like rah. Like that was kind of funny, but that's like my best recreation of it. It was like rah. But it had sorry. But it had like this raspy, like scratchy sound behind it. So I was like, so I'm in my kitchen doing my dishes. I walk up to my hallway. I flick the light on and I look down my hallway and I'm like, because it sounded like it came from down my hallway. And I was like, what the fuck was that? And I asked that out loud, even though no one's in my house, by the way. My brother's on vacation. It's just me in the house. Okay? Just me. And I hear this, and I'm like, I flip the light on, I'm like, what the fuck was that? I'm not going to investigate, because I'm not a basic white bitch. But I, like, looked down the hall, and I was like, what the fuck was that? And then I was like, you're not fucking welcome here. You weren't invited in. Like, I'm superstitious and paranormal. Like, I believe in that shit. But, I was just like, what the fuck? And to add to this, I looked down the hallway when I turned the light on. All of the doors in my hallway were closed. Tell me why that next fucking morning, on July 3rd in the morning when I woke up, my brother's back bedroom door at the end of the hallway was cracked open. And I was like, no, that was closed last night. I saw his silver door handle. It was not cracked to where I could see the black of his room. So I was like, what? And then before that, on July 1st, I got home from work. It was just a quick cover shift for the morning, so I was only there for like maybe 5 hours. I get home, I take a nap around like 3-ish, I think. I was just fucking tired because I woke up early to do the morning shift and open. So I just took a nap, fell asleep for a couple hours, and apparently while I was asleep, dead ass asleep, did not fucking wake up, my friend calls me, and she calls me once, and then she calls me again an hour later. That one I pick up. And I start talking to her, and she's like, hey, how come you hung up on me earlier? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? You didn't call me earlier. She's like, yeah, I did. You picked up for a second. I heard a mumbled something or other, and then you hung up. And I was like, bitch, that was not me. What? And so I go over to her house to smoke and talk about it, because that's what we do. And we're sitting there and we're talking about it. I'm telling her everything that happened, and she's like, no, yeah, it answered, the phone answered. I heard like a mumbled like yeah or something, she said, and then it hung up. That's what she said. And I was like, bitch, that was not me. I was like, that was not me. I kid you not. I was dead ass asleep. And I was facing the opposite way. So my bedside table's right there, and my phone was over there. I was facing this way. And when I woke up to answer her call an hour later, I fell asleep facing this way. When I woke up to answer her call an hour after she had called me before, I was still facing this way. I had to turn around, flop over, and grab my phone to answer her call. And, so I was like, what the fuck is happening? This house, haunted ass house. Of course, both my parents died in it. Blah, blah. My mom and my stepdad both, unfortunately passed away in this house. But yeah, so my house is fucking haunted. And then also, while leaving my best friend's house, for the first time ever in my life, in real life, I had heard them on videos and movies and all that jazz. For the first time in my 22 years of life, in real life, real time, I heard a fucking owl. And it was a deep ass owl too, like deep hoot. It was not, because around here in Oklahoma, I know we have barn owls, but this was not no barn owl. Those fuckers screeched. This was like a hoo fuck it. Sorry, these little noises I'm making are making me laugh. But this was like a deep ass owl. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? What is happening? And then, like, I'm thinking, because like I said, I'm superstitious, paranormal, all that jazz. I'm thinking and I'm like, oh my goodness, my sister got me like a thrifted / vintage / new. It was just a bunch of pieces put together, but it was a big ass jewelry jar. And speaking of that jewelry jar, again, once I come home from my friend's house, I'm talking with her over voice text. So I'm sending her voice texts and she's sending them back. And I told her about the owl, and I was like, yo, big ass owl hooted at me when I left your house. And then she was like, oh yeah, we have those around here. So like, she wasn't concerned about the owl because she had heard it before and it had been around here, or around there. But I had never heard one before in my life, and this other paranormal stuff was going on. So I was like, coincidence? I think not. But, and I send her a voice message, and I'm talking with her, being my superstitious self, and I'm like, yo, I think I figured out what it was. I think it was the jewelry jar. The jar, bro. And when I said that, in that voice text, all my other voice texts sounded normal, and I don't ever, like, hold it super close. I always, like, hold it, like, this far away from me. Like, I wasn't super close, like, screeching in it. And whenever I said the word jar, and I said it twice, I was like, I think it's the jewelry jar. The jar. Because I was being funny with her. And, both times I said that, it screeched, like, the sound, like, messed up. And, like, she listened to it, and herself, she's also another superstitious paranormal person. She was like, I cannot listen to that voice text again, or furthermore, just in case that happens again, because that gave me chills down my spine. It sounded like it answered you, Kelly. Like, that's what she said to me. She was like, it sounded like it fucking answered you. And I was like, what? So I cleansed my whole fucking space immediately. But then that whole knocking thing happened the next day. Like I said, I don't know if that was a firework or if that was actually paranormal activity, but it still freaked me out either way, because I was thinking like, oh, if it's a firework, they're gonna shoot off more fireworks. No, that was the only shot that went off. That's why I was so confused of, what, was it a firework or was it paranormal activity? Because I don't know. And other stuff has been happening before this, like a couple years before this. We had a little grace period. Now it's fucking picking back up. Something in retrograde. What is happening? Someone tell me. And if you made it this far, thank you. I love you. I know my videos are long, but yeah.
All right, buckle up, guys. This is going to be a long one. This is Spooky Series Story 3, and I've tried to record this 4 times at least, but it's going to be a 10-minute video, so just deal with it. All right, quick recap. We left off living at the house that I spent most of my childhood at, from like 7 or 8 to like 18. Long time. My parents got divorced when I was 10. My dad stayed in that house. Again, no bad vibes, really. Just spirit of my deceased cat came to visit. All good. My mom moved to a rental a couple miles down the street, up kind of in the foothills. Totally normal neighborhood. Everything was just kind of hilly in the, like, for the lots. Little, like, single floor, L-shaped, like, kind of ranch farmhouse style house. But we were the only house on that block that had neighbors on every side except for directly next to us and behind us. We had this big empty lot, this big field that wrapped around us, and then it was like normal neighborhood from there on. Bad vibes in that field. Didn't like it. Didn't like it from the day we moved in. To this day, 20 years later, I still have nightmares. Terrifying nightmares about that house. Just this overwhelming sensation, and in my dreams that there's like dead bodies back there. Bad jujus. Bad jujus. So, we move into this house. During the day, everything's fine. Things are fine initially. All good. But at night, that sinking, heavy, dark feeling creeps back, where I can no longer be in my room, like, at all at night. It's as if someone's watching me from the hallway, and I would have bet my life on it back then that there was something in that hallway, once it got dark, just waiting to creep around the corner and stare at me or get me or something, like, just this overwhelming sensation. Something was in that hallway. And our house was a big L. So, like, hold on. Let me set you down. Oh, no. Okay. So, I have to do this with the lights on during the day, or else I'll be chicken shit and I can't tell these stories. So, our house was a big L. This was all living space, living room, kitchen, whatever, and this was one big hallway. So, it was bedroom, bathroom, my bedroom, like my brother, bathroom, me, and then my mom was at the end of the hall. And this space in between was our backyard. And we had a wrought iron fence that separated our pool from our back patio and our back door. But right here where my mom's bedroom was, there was a back door. So it was like back door at the end of the hall, her master bedroom door. It was right at the end. Okay, are you picturing it? So, that was the setup. And, again, everything was fine. Just could not sleep in my bed. Had nightmares every night. Would run into, terrified to my mom's room, sleep with her. Everything would be good from there. Probably not for her. She probably couldn't sleep that well. But come to find out, she probably wasn't anyways. So at this house, we found what was called a psychic circle board. And if you don't know, it's very similar to a Ouija, but you would never touch a Ouija board. Ever, ever, ever. No. Bad vibes. But a psychic circle board is positive, pure, bright light, good energies, good spirits. You say a prayer to open the board to communicate. It kind of acts like a Ouija board. Yes, no, they can spell things out. They've got numbers, things like that. And then you close it the same way. Block your boundaries, close any doors, say, we thank you for your time, but we're ending the communication, and you just shut them out. So we started doing that, messing around. My mom would do it by herself and with her friends, and then we would do it together as a family and just goof around, ask questions. We always kept a notepad as well. And we would write down the answers to our questions just to see if it was complete gibberish or if it was like it making sense, if we could track it, things like that. And so we started doing it more frequently, when we were bored on the weekends, things like that. And we would chat with like a good amount of spirit. That house was crack-a-lacking with energy, I can tell you that much. Some of it was complete gibberish, couldn't quite make it out. Some of it we had like decent conversations where you could follow what was happening. Well, one time, we were having a conversation and we started it like we always did. Is anyone here? Yes. Can you give us your name? Spelled something out. Did you used to live here? Yes. Do you have family? Yes. Got their names. Blah, blah, blah. We had a whole conversation, writing everything down. We're tracking this info. When did you live here? Blah, blah, blah. Well, my mom at the time was in like escrow, loan, and mortgage, like that realm of the field. So she had access to county records and property records. And that little spidey sense of hers was tingling, and she was like, this is a lot of specific information. Fuck it. For funsies, let's look it up and see if anyone by these names ever lived here. They did. And not only did they, but she was able to track a living relative from that previous owner, and she called him. Don't know how she started that conversation, basically saying, hey, we talked to your dead relative, they gave me all of your info, and that's how we tracked you down. But she did. She was able to legitimately verify everything. And I remember the day she came home, she was like, I got an update, and was just like shocked to her core. Shook us. My brother too will still claim to this day that he faked it and made everything up, but that would be the coinky dink of all coinky dinks, if I'm telling you, right? Insane. And that kind of jump-started things. Kind of like went downhill from there, if I'm being honest. So that was all fun and games. Again, when it got dark out, creepy vibes, didn't like it. And my poor mother, saint of a woman she is for dealing with all this shit over the years, was a beacon for the spiritual energies. The entities and presences loved her, both good and bad. So I remember the first story she told me. She woke up one night and she had started having like night terrors and night sweats, and looking back, maybe one episode of sleep paralysis, which would make sense now knowing what we know about it, where she woke up in a cold sweat, full panic, but something told her, don't open your eyes. And she felt like something was crushing her chest to the point she said it was hard to breathe. But she was like, don't open your eyes. She just knew. Something instinctually was telling her there is something hovering over you. I'm literally getting goosebumps. She was like, I just knew something was inches from my face hovering over me, and I did not want to open my eyes. But she was like paralyzed. So that's what makes me think maybe sleep paralysis, but also maybe not. She said when she opened her eyes and finally got up the nerve to do it, that there was this grotesque, demonic figure hovering. I don't like the fact that I'm home alone saying this. Hovering over her face, just inches away. She said it scared her fucking shitless, but she couldn't move. I don't know how she snapped out of it. I don't know if she slept the rest of that night. I don't know. And after that, shit got even weirder. She said she woke up, I'm pretty sure one night. I don't know if these were the same two instances in one night or if they were separate, just very close together. But she woke up another night to a tink, tink, tink sound very far away, getting closer. And if you remember the layout of this house, there's a wrought iron fence in our backyard that wraps around to the back door next to her bedroom. She said it was like someone took a stick and was just walking along going tink, 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 dragging it along that fence line, and it got louder and louder as it got closer, and it would stop and it would fade away. I literally, my whole body has goosies. That shit, so scary to think about. Just knowing something's out there making that sound. Oh, fuck that. Lucy! No. So that happened. And I don't know, again, if this was the same night or different instances, but I think she said she woke up on another occasion or this night, either after hearing that or, again, maybe a different night, and she had this terrifying sensation that there was something down that hallway. And if you remember, she's at the very end, so she has a straight shot down that hallway. And she said she had this urge to look, and there was this shadowy figure, just raggedy woman, long crazy hair, just dark shadow, grayish, hollow, floating down the hallway straight towards her. I think she said she almost shit herself, but she also didn't want to take her eyes off of it because she had to track it. Bravest woman I know, because I would have Scooby-Dooed the fuck up out that room. You would have saw a Rachel-sized hole in the wall. I'm sorry. And she said it got all the way to her bedroom and then vanished. Excuse me? No thank you. So she got the brunt of it over at that house, and we moved a year or two later, and the houses we were at after that were like pretty chill vibes. Like, it's good. Still had some stuff happen, but it wasn't dark, demonic, heavy. Like, that shit was creepy. Still used the psychic circle board for a couple years after that, and we would always have our friends. The test was you take the biggest non-believer you know and you have them do it by themselves, ask questions without them saying it out loud, and let the board answer. They would be stunned. And we turned a lot of people into believers with that thing because you can't fake it. So yeah, I'll try to think of a happy one next. I think we're getting there. But that was some crazy shit in that house. 10 out of 10, do not recommend. Oh, Lucy! And on an ending note, she just ripped open a down feather pillow. Fuck!
that sounds completely unbelievable, but is entirely true.
I made this recording 10 minutes. I don't know if it's gonna take that long, but this story is a rabbit hole and it made me believe in the paranormal forever. My boyfriend and I had a spiritual attachment for 9 months. Started about a year ago when we went to see his family in South Carolina and go to a cemetery. We went with the siblings to play Find My Grave with a spirit box. Find My Grave is basically like you ask the spirit box questions and see if the spirit like guides you to their grave, basically gives you clues and whatever. So we start doing this and all of a sudden we hear these music notes coming out of a spirit box that were going da-da, da-da. And that was kind of the spirit's answer as yes, you know? So like we would say, is your grave over here? It would go da-da. Were you a man? Da-da. And then we were like, wait, were you a music teacher? And it goes da-da. So that was pretty crazy. We walked all around the cemetery trying to find this spirit, very active with us. And then all of a sudden, everything went silent for like 25 minutes. So then we were kind of like, okay, whatever, maybe this is BS. So we started to nickname this guy Music Man throughout this whole thing. So we, at the end, decided to leave. And we were like, okay, bye, Music Man. And after 25 minutes of silence, it goes, da-na. And we were like, holy crap. Is this recording? Okay. So a few days go by. We go home. I used to work in an art gallery, which I believe was haunted. So I turn on the spirit box. I was alone in the art gallery and I was like, is there anybody here? Whatever. And the first thing that happens is Dana. So I felt a little unsettled, but I was like, okay, maybe there's something wrong with the spirit box. Like this has just all been BS. Like it's just like a malfunction in the spirit box or whatever. Until I go on another ghost investigation with a psychic that I trust and I go with my boyfriend. Turn on the spirit box, starts going, Dana. The psychic goes, I'm seeing 6 people in a cemetery going with a spirit box. I'm seeing like a really old cemetery. I'm seeing a lonely man. I'm seeing a lost grave. You have something with you. And we were like, whoa, how did you know how many people were with us? You're seeing a lost grave? And she's like, yes, you have someone with you. He really likes your energy. He died alone. Yada, yada, yada. And we're like, oh God. And so during this time, the spirit box is going, Dana, 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 Dana. Okay. Fast forward to our next ghost investigation. We are in Griffith Park and I have this on camera. I will post it again so you can see. So we're doing a ghost investigation. We hear the Dana, Dana, Dana over and over again. And then finally, the spirit box says, and I have this on camera, Music Man. He started to identify what we were calling him, his nickname. And I start crying. I get really emotional and I'm like, you know your name is Music Man, how? And then he finally speaks for the first time and he has this accent. And he goes, I'm proud of it. Over and over again, I'm proud of it. And he goes, family and all this kind of stuff. And it made us really emotional. Yeah, okay, so here's the next thing. We do another ghost investigation, okay? The Dana Dana thing is happening. He also likes doing opera. He'll go, ah, ah. So he's like adding other music, but you know it's him. At this point, like you know it's him, okay? I don't even really know how to describe it. But anyways, he starts to send us a message. During this ghost investigation, and I have this all on camera, he says the number 34 at least 25 to 30 times. He keeps going 34, 34, 34, 34. And we're like, what are you trying to tell us? And he doesn't tell us what he's trying to say, okay? So then the next day, I'm going on an Instagram live. I also have this on camera. And I turn on the spirit box and I'm telling my audience what was going on with the 34 thing. And all of a sudden, in front of everyone on the live, he starts saying 34, 34, 34. So many people saw this happening and we're like, what does this number mean? What is going on? I looked at plot lines at the cemetery we were at. I looked at codes. I looked at angel numbers and I looked at everything and I still haven't found the real answer to what 34 was, okay? But this gets even better, so just keep watching. At this point, I'm just using Music Man in my ghost investigations. I'm like, hey, can you see if there's another spirit? Like, can you bring them out and whatever? And can you protect us? Whatever. Okay, this is when it gets crazy. My boyfriend's looking for something for me for Christmas. And I love the Misfits. They're like one of my favorite bands. And he is at a vintage store. And in the back of a rack is this shirt. No context. Misfits font. And it says Music Man. And he got it for me for Christmas. But it was weird. Why was that sitting in the back? This lady said at the store that it's been there for a while. No one knows where it came from or what it is. I know there's like the musical Music Man, but it didn't look like one of those theater musical shirts, right? Okay, I have it. I'll show it to you guys. Okay, this is the shirt, Music Man. There's nothing, no more information about it anywhere on the shirt. It just says Music Man, okay? I go ghost investigating a store. I hear the Dana and I'm like, hey, Music Man, like whatever. And he goes, present, in his voice, in his like howdy voice. I'm going like, what? Like, what are you trying to say? And he goes, Christmas present. He literally said Christmas present. He is such an intelligent spirit. And I know you guys are going to start saying like, oh, he's negative, whatever, blah, blah. No, he never was. Like, he felt in a weird way like family. And I'm not trying to like sound crazy. I got info about him from multiple psychics and they're like, no, he died alone. And like everyone I've told this story to feels like he was left on earth for some reason to learn a lesson, to figure out something, to be a part of something he wasn't a part of in his life. Like he wanted to experience something. And now I think we went to the Clown Motel and he was there with us. I have it all on camera too on my YouTube. And I'm like, oh, that's Music Man. And he's going, Dana, Dana, whatever. He's like very reactive. And then all of a sudden, after that investigation, he's gone. He hasn't talked to us since. And we're trying to wonder why, like what happened. And like sometimes we joke, we're like, oh, we miss him, whatever. And I mean, obviously, like, no, it's not good to like have an attachment around you all the time. But we wondered why, like what was the moment? Like why did he finally leave after 9 months of just trying to send us messages and being so responsive and being so aware of our lives? Like what lesson did he learn? And that's what I'm still trying to figure out. And I don't care if you guys don't believe me or not, but this is a very real thing that happened to me. And I have footage for most of this to back it up. So if you're curious to learn more, or if you know anything about why this happened or about the number 34, like please let me know, because this is what made me believe in the paranormal. It was him saying Music Man on the spirit box, him sending us messages multiple times. The Christmas present thing at the end was just like so insane, and I'm still trying to just like figure it out, and I wish I knew the reason. But that's my story. Thank you for watching. If you watched this far, I appreciate it. And yes, this is the craziest paranormal story I have had so far.
About strange encounters, I got a spooky scary story time submission from someone named Amber who detailed a story called The Signal People, and she basically described her experience dating this man who lived out of state, who she met at her job, and he ended up being very strange. I'm getting like covert secret government agent vibes. I could be wrong. Wild story. I could not fit it into one part on here though. The story ended up being like almost 20 minutes long. Normally the spooky scary story times are like between 3 and 5 minutes, I would say, so this one was like very long. So I put it on my video app channel, you know, the one that spells YOUTUBE. I had to think about how to spell it for a second. It's the most recent upload. It is part of a compilation of stories, but I deliberately put it at the beginning of the newest episode. So if you've already heard all the other stories and you just want to hear that one, that's where it is. This is what the cover of that episode looks like. Like I said, it's the most recent upload on my channel. Same username there. It's at Ashley Inc. But that's what I'm going to be doing from now on with the longer stories, instead of breaking them into parts and having people inevitably get mad at me. So if you want to hear the Signal People, go there and check it out. Thank you. Love you.
Note to self, do not go to Tijuana, because what the fuck is happening there? You see the title. We are in this together. If I had to hear this story, so do you. If you do want to listen to it in Spanish though, it is from Relatos de la Noche and it is called La Habitación del Poseído. So this guy says that 20 years ago, it was around Semana Santa and something really messed up happened to him. This happened in Tijuana and he was traveling there because he needed to give some people this important document for his job. When he got to Tijuana, he realized that somebody at his job messed up with scheduling the trip and thought that he was going to pay out of pocket for everything, being that the company would just pay him back later. But he says that at the time he did not have enough money. So now not only did he have to find a hotel, but he had to find one that he can afford and that was close by the business that he had to go to the following day to take those very important documents. So he ends up telling this taxi guy the problem, and the taxi said that he knew a hotel that was close by the area that he needed to be at and that he thought that it was affordable. He also explained that he knew he was going to have problems finding a hotel because it was Semana Santa and everything looked really busy in the area. So the guy ends up taking him to this hotel, and he explains how when he saw the hotel, he noticed that it was really, really old. Even when he went inside the hotel, all the workers treated him like it was back in the day. And he's not saying it in a negative way. On the contrary, it was a good thing, because when he explained his situation to the workers, they told him that the amount of money that he had wouldn't be enough to get their last room, but maybe they would try to work with him to get him something else. They explained to him that on the last floor of the building there was a basement, and in that basement there are 3 bedrooms. One of the bedrooms is where they stored furniture and things like that they might use in the future, and the other 2 bedrooms is where the workers would stay if they worked overnight and needed to take a nap or anything like that. One of the 2 bedrooms was actually occupied. They were going to do him the favor letting him stay in that empty bedroom, but only if he was going to stay there to go to sleep at night. So as soon as he would wake up, he would have to go, and he wouldn't be able to come back unless it was nighttime and he had to go to sleep. He did think it was weird, but he also thought that they were doing him a favor, and unfortunately he wouldn't have any of like the services that they offered at the hotel. He wouldn't even have a TV in there, but he was so desperate that he didn't want to sleep out in the street, so he agreed to stay there. So the guy who was doing him this favor called on the workers that was going to help the guy take his suitcases to the basement, and he noticed when the guy came and asked the man, are you sure? Like, are you sure we're gonna let him stay there? And the guy's like, yeah, go ahead and help him, please. He said that when the guy came to get his suitcases, he looked at him and said, are you sure? Are you sure you want to sleep in there? And I mean, he said yes, because he had no other option. He noticed that the guy who was helping him with his suitcases was trying to start a conversation with him, but at this point it was 11 p.m. and he was so tired and he just wanted to go to sleep. When they finally got to this room, which by the way was really old and really unkept, he ended up giving the guy a tip, and the guy gets the tip but asks him if he believes in anything like weird or strange. He looks at the guy and he's like, weird things? And the guy's like, yeah, like the devil, like ghosts, like something paranormal. He just giggled a little bit because he thought this guy was playing, so he just dismissively was like, good night, like get out of this room, I'm ready to go to bed. He explains how he didn't need a backstory. He didn't need to know if like something was happening in that room or if there was ghosts in there. He didn't need to know any of it. He just wanted to go to sleep. Honestly, he travels so much and he stayed in so many hotels that he's heard so many like ghost stories that he just wasn't interested. And looking around the room, he said the only strange thing about it was that there was another door that looked to be connected to the other bedroom on the other side. However, it looked like it was cemented to the point where you couldn't open it anymore. Like there's no way to open and close. Somebody made sure to seal that door. He ends up going into the restroom, taking a shower, and as he's walking out of the restroom, he's starting to hear sounds from the room next to him that was also being occupied by somebody else. When he got closer to the door, he realized that the sound was almost coming from the top of the door, and being that he knew somebody was staying there, he didn't want to be rude, so out loud he asked if somebody was there, if somebody needed something. He heard a woman's voice respond, please help me get out of here. He looked around his room and realized that he didn't even have a phone in the bedroom to call the reception, but he needed to reassure himself that everything was okay. He kept thinking to himself, like, why is there somebody locked in there? Why is there somebody needing help? Like, this was so fucking weird. He got a little scared because he started to think of the possibilities, like, why is there a woman locked in the bedroom in the fucking basement? Like, he didn't know what to do, so he decided that he was gonna go out himself. He put his clothes back on, he put shoes on, and that is when he hears that somebody is walking through the hallway of that basement. He heard the footsteps stop in the bedroom that was next to his, and he heard when somebody opened that door, and that is when he decided to very silently open up his door to look and see who was out there. So as he's peeking, he says that there was a silence that was too quiet, and then in a split moment somebody peeked out from that bedroom straight to where he was looking at them, and that is when he sees this very tall fat guy just walking away from that bedroom. It was so unexpected that the guy like jolted out of the room to look at him. He literally took steps back and ended up falling on the bed. After that, all he heard was like very heavy steps going up those stairs, and he knew that the guy was headed out. He couldn't stay there, he couldn't stay still, because now he's thinking, what if this fat guy is doing something to the girl that's asking for help? So he decided to run up those stairs and go to the reception desk. So he tells the reception people, hey, there's a lady asking for help next to me, and there's this guy who went out of there. I think he's keeping her locked in there. He explains how after he says this to the reception people and all the workers, there was a lot of movement. Everybody was moving, everybody was doing something, but nobody would tell him why they were all moving. That's when he notices that all of these workers were heading to the basement, and one of the reception ladies stayed there and asked him, what did the person look like that you saw in the hallway? When he described the person that he saw, this girl also ignored him, didn't say anything to him, but she started to give details to somebody on a radio. The only person person who was giving him attention was that guy who had helped him with his suitcases. The guy was standing in the front of the hotel by the door smiling, but when he looked at the guy and saw that he looked really confused, he started to walk up to him to see what was happening or what he needed or if something happened. So he tells him everything that happened, and the worker ends up telling him, okay, maybe you should go sit at the bar and just get a drink while you wait, because it's gonna be a while before they bring him back to that room. He could tell that this worker wanted him to ask him more, like, what do you mean the guy has to go back in there? You're gonna put him back in the room. So before he went to the bar, he asked the guy, what do you mean get him back in the room? Like, what are you talking about? The worker tells him, the guy that talked to you through that door, the one that's staying next to you. And he tells the worker, no, that was the lady, it wasn't the guy. The worker said, no, there is no woman in there. It's the guy that you saw. Apparently, the guy had also talked to some of the workers in that woman's voice. The worker starts telling him that this guy had been in that room for a week now and they've had to deal with him, and that's when two other workers passed by, so that he had to stop talking. He gave himself a little pause. After they moved away, he almost whispered in his ear, they're waiting for them to give him authorization to do an exorcism. The worker tells him that they don't know if they're going to do the exorcism there or if they're going to take him somewhere else, but that everybody that's involved in this exorcism thing was also staying at this hotel. He tells them that the reason why they're letting them stay there was because the family of this guy that's staying next to him is friends with the owner of the hotel. He ends up giving him a sign to stop, almost telling him he didn't want to hear anything else. He tells the worker, I have to stay here too, man. Just don't tell me anything else. I don't want to know anymore. He ends up going to the bar, and by this point he had already had 2 drinks before that same guy came looking for him again. Tells them that they found the guy and everything is okay and that he can return to his room again. What the fuck, bro? I'd rather sleep on the fucking street. He asked the worker, the guy is still there, gonna stay next to me? And the worker's like, yeah, but don't worry, they already calmed him down, everything's okay. Apparently they gave him some sort of pill or something to calm him down, and he tells them, you're at the very least gonna be able to go to sleep. Am I? You think I'm gonna go to sleep? Very nervously he walked to the room again. He said that the drinks and how tired he was ended up making him fall asleep. Bitch, I could never. However, it was a very restless night because he was having nightmares. He would end up waking up and he could swear to hear a woman singing from that room next to him. He's like, it was a woman's voice, definitely not coming from this really big, tall, fat guy that was staying next to me. He's like, if I had to bet my life on it, I would say that there was a woman in there and not this big dude. It wasn't even over then. He explains that the most terrifying thing that happened was he was awoken by this very, very deep breathing coming from inside of his bedroom, and it was almost right before the sunlight came out. He didn't have his glasses on, and he's like, thank God I didn't, because I could have sworn that when I opened my eyes there was a figure standing in the bedroom with me. He could tell that the figure was in the shape of a woman, but that her arms were very weirdly positioned, the pose was just off. He closed his eyes, started praying, and ended up falling asleep again, until he woke up again by a really loud sound coming from next door. Bitch, I would have been out of there. When he woke up again, he remembered again about the woman, the figure in his room, and he was like, I had enough. Thankfully, I thought he was never gonna fucking leave. What the fuck? He said that he grabbed all of his stuff when it was morning, when he woke up, and he got the fuck out of there. The hotel, that place, is still open till this day. He's like, I just googled it. It is still running. He said that this hotel is only a few steps away from El Reloj de Ulmental. He's like, I'm only sharing where it's at because I wonder if anybody who hears this, who has gone around there, knows what happened to this person or what happened 20 years ago in that place and what might have happened to that person, to that guy who was possessed. I need to stop being so nosy because of course I started reading the comments to see if anybody knew anything, but there was nothing there. Everybody was just leaving comments about how scared they were and how some of them would have just stayed on the metro bus and gone to sleep there, or stayed in the center of the town. I would have been gone by the first time that the guy was like, are you sure? Why? Why? I would have already gotten all the dirt out of him. But what do you guys think?
Her husband's family didn't want her dead. They wanted something much worse. I am back with another spooky story. This one is another submission from Lagos, Nigeria. We're gonna call the person who submitted this story Fatima. So Fatima says after years of thinking about the situation, knows exactly what happened to her. And it's nothing short of a miracle that she is here today to tell this story. Fatima says she's only alive because her family refused to give up on her. Well, Fatima grew up in Lagos, Nigeria in a loud, protective family. Her grandmother used to always say, if an entire family smiles too perfectly, look for the person they're hiding. And remember that quote because that would become the theme of this story. So Fatima gets older and she meets this guy. We're gonna call him Tunde. Tunde was charming, educated, successful, everything her parents prayed that she would find in a man. So Tunde and Fatima started dating. Things were great, but there was only one problem. Tunde's family hated Fatima. His mother never looked at her directly in the eye. His sisters would suddenly stop talking whenever she enters the room. Every visit to their compound felt like she was interrupting something. So Tunde and Fatima continued dating and they were dating for a while before he proposed. So fast forward to the afternoon of their wedding, Fatima's father pulled her aside and said to her, I don't trust that family. Fatima asks her father why. And her father tells her sometimes your spirit notices danger before your eyes do and told her don't go through with this. But Fatima just thought that her father was just being dramatic. Fatima married Tunde anyway. So the first few months of her marriage, Fatima says were wonderful. Then his mother insisted that they moved into the family compound until they built their own house. And that was the beginning. Every morning, Tunde's mother bought Fatima a herbal tea. Fatima just remembering it tasting bitter. This mother-in-law refused anybody else to prepare Fatima's meals. And she always sat there to watch Fatima eat her plate to its entirety. About 2 weeks of Fatima living there, Fatima stopped feeling like herself. She says her body became very heavy. Her thoughts felt slow. Sometimes she would stare at a wall for hours without realizing. She would hear people talking around her. However, Fatima could not answer. Fatima was in this weird zombie-like state. Fatima describes it as being trapped inside of her own body. It just seemed like Fatima was slowly but surely losing it. So around the time that this was happening to Fatima, Tunde acted devastated. He cried in front of everyone, held her hand, and told everyone that he was praying for her. And they only told her family that she was a little sick, never actually went into detail of what was happening to her. At night, she would hear Tunde whisper things into her ears. He would whisper things like, just stay asleep. You don't need to wake up. You belong to us now. Fatima wanted to scream, but she could not. And Fatima was aware of everything going on around her. She just couldn't react, couldn't do or say anything. Well, days turned into months, and Tunde's family began making every decision for Fatima. They controlled her bank account, they sold jewelry that her grandmother left for her, they transferred property into Tunde's name. Everyone around believed that Fatima just suffered from some mysterious illness. This story is really long, and if it's after a certain amount of time, TikTok is not going to push this video. I'm literally filming part 2 right now. And I'm going to drop part 2 once this video reaches 50 comments.
And this is why I don't care what's out there. I'm not pulling over after dark. What's up, creepy crew, and welcome back to Paranormal Wednesday. So there's this guy. Let's call him Ray. So Ray's been driving trucks for over 20 years. He said he's definitely had his fair share of seeing like weird stuff or crazy stuff, but nothing prepared him for what he saw the night he was driving on Route 47. So he said it was after midnight. The roads were empty. He said the type of empty where like his headlights looked like a spotlight in the middle of nowhere. He was in between towns and he had his windows cracked so he could get some fresh air. So he's driving down Route 47 when he sees 2 kids. Immediately no, because what are they doing out here at this time? Demons. I don't know. That would be my first thought. He said these 2 kids were maybe 10 or 12 years old and they were just standing in the middle of the road like perfectly still. So he slows down and he stops the truck a few feet in front of them and he notices their eyes. He said their eyes are completely black. Like not just dark, like no whites. Completely black. If I excuse me, run them over. Run over, wait for it. Run over. He said they were extremely pale, like almost gray looking. He said their clothes were really thin and tattered and looked like they had been washed like hundreds of times. But what really got him was their eyes. He said he doesn't know why, but he felt compelled to help them. I don't know why either. I would feel compelled to call the FBI before they start saying I'm cooey. So then they speak. Could you give us a ride, please? I don't think that's what they sounded like. Actually, in fact, he said that their voices were very monotone and flat, so I know that's not what they sounded like. But in my head, that's what they sounded like for a second. He said they asked it like too politely, like it was rehearsed. And at that moment, his stomach dropped. He said the hair on the back of his arms and his neck stood up, and every instinct in his body was telling him to say no. So Ray is trying to stay calm, and he's like, I'm sorry, but fuck no. So he says they don't argue, they just stare. They don't move, they don't blink, they just stare. Immediately poking one of them in the eye, preferably the older one. Ray said his chest tightened, so he turns around to grab a flashlight out of his truck, thinking maybe he can make some sense of all of this if he can see better. What more do you need to see? Tell them you have a good night, pull off, and get CPS on the phone. That's as much as I'm doing. So he grabs the flashlight, and when he turns back, they're gone. No footprints, nothing disturbed, just gone. When Ray got home, he checked the dash cam footage because he wanted to see the two kids again just to prove to himself he wasn't losing it. That didn't help. When he looked over the footage, the road was as it has always been, empty, nothing. However, when he listened to the audio, it was clear as day. Could you give us a line, please? Okay, again, I probably know how they sounded, but still. Two little voices in the dead of night. Ray said he hasn't been able to sleep since. He said he doesn't know what or who he saw, but he will never forget those eyes. Y'all stay safe out there.
When I was 6 years old, something grabbed my foot and pulled me down the stairs of my basement. If you're new here, I'm Krista, and on my account I tell spooky stories either submitted to me or found on the internet. Today's story was submitted anonymously. When I was 4 years old, I suffered from severe night terrors. I would wake up screaming and completely stiff. My mom eventually took me to a sleep therapist who prescribed medication to help. The medicine stopped the night terrors, but it triggered sleepwalking instead. We lived in a 2-story house with my bedroom upstairs. Almost every night, I would sleepwalk all the way down to the basement floor. The basement stairs were old wood with open backs, meaning you could reach through the steps from underneath. When I was 6, my family was redoing the basement after a bad storm flooded it. One day, my dad asked me to go down and grab a tool for him. As I walked down the stairs, something grabbed my foot and pulled hard. I flew down the remaining steps, landing with cuts, scrapes, and a bump on my head. Right after I hit the ground, I heard someone laughing. I thought it was my older sister playing a prank on me, so I turned around and yelled, but nobody was there. The basement door at the top of the stairs was shut, and there was nowhere else for anyone to hide. I sat there frozen, trying to make sense of it. Eventually, I just grabbed the tool and ran upstairs. It has been 18 years, and I still drive by that old house sometimes. But after we moved out, my sleepwalking, night terrors, and the constant feeling of someone lying in bed next to me completely stopped. This sort of thing was what stopped me from going down to the basement in my house when I was a kid, because I always thought that someone was gonna grab me and push me or lock me into the basement. But I'm really glad that you moved out, and I hope that you have had no other experiences like this since. Thanks so much for submitting this story. If you guys have any stories you'd like me to read, please email them to me and I will catch them if I can. And I will see you in the next one.
Imagine you playing hide and seek and the person who's hiding from you literally vanishes, never to be heard from again. This happened to someone in 1969. Follow me down the rabbit hole and let's get into it.
Now this is a story.
6-year-old Dennis was camping with his family in the Great Smoky Mountains. Everything was chill until the kids decided to play hide and go seek, and Dennis goes and hides behind this bush. And this is the last time anybody sees him. It's crazy because he didn't run far. There was adults everywhere, but when they went looking for him, he was just gone. At first, they thought he was playing a prank, so they calling him Dennis, you could come out, but he's not popping out. So minutes turn into panic, and panic turns into hours, and before you know it, it's becoming one of US's largest search operations. I'm talking hundreds of people, even Green Berets. The dogs was brought in to track his scent, and they would pick up his trail, but it gets weird because it would just stop. It was like he disappeared mid-step, no footprints, no sign of a struggle, just literally vanished. But then a family nearby hiking reported seeing a hairy man-like figure moving through the woods. And it was carrying something over his shoulder, and whatever it was, they said it was moving way too fast to be anything human. However, the sighting was never confirmed, and Dennis Martin was never found. No body, no clothes, no answers, nothing. And this is why the woods freak me out, because what can make someone disappear in seconds without a trace?
I need to tell you guys this ghost story. This story was sent into my email, and if you have any ghost stories, paranormal encounters, or scary stories that you want to share, you can send them to the email in my bio. For the last 12 years, I've wondered if something has been following us, following my family. To start, I was raised by my great-grandmother. my biological mother abandoned me and my 1-year-old brother in a motel room when I was only 6 months old. My great-grandmother took us in and raised us and eventually adopted us when I was 7. Around 6 years old, I started having a series of intense night terrors. When my great-grandmother would ask me what had happened, I would always give her the same explanation. There was someone standing at the end of my bed. I would describe it to her in detail. There was a woman in my room. At first, she would be standing in my room looking at me. She would be smiling and waving. Sometimes she would sit on the edge of my bed and hum quietly. I had no idea who she was, and I had no idea why she kept appearing to me. Years later, when I was around 12, I was at my grandparents' house on my dad's side, and we were looking at old photo albums. My cousin and I were laying in the living room, flipping through them, when she opened an album filled with pictures of my grandmother's parents. My eyes froze on one photo. I pointed at the picture and told my cousin I'd seen her before. Immediately, she asked me what I meant, and I told her that the woman in the photo was the same woman I had been seeing standing in my bedroom for years. We brought the photo album to my grandfather, and I explained everything. He asked me to describe what the woman was wearing when I saw her, so I did. I described her clothing in as much detail as I could. My grandfather just stared at me for a bit, not saying anything. Apparently, I had described the exact outfit that she had been buried in. That was only the beginning, though. Years later, after my husband and I got together, strange things continued happening wherever we lived. The first time was when I was staying overnight at his house. No one else was home. His mom and stepdad were at work, and his brother was at his girlfriend's house. But all night, I couldn't sleep. His bedroom was right beside the kitchen, and throughout the night, I kept hearing things. Light switches clicking on and off, cabinets opening and closing, quick footsteps. At first, I tried to convince myself his brother had come home, but when we woke up the next morning, I mentioned it to him. He just casually said, "Yeah, that happens sometimes. I just ignore it." About a year later, his family moved into a different house, and I eventually moved in too. For the next 3 years, the same things continued. I would hear voices when nobody was home, doors would open and close by themselves, lights turned on in the middle of the night, and I always remembered something I had been told before. If you think something paranormal is happening, don't acknowledge it. Ignore it. So that's what I did. Eventually, though, the activity got to be too much, and so I told my husband's mother what was happening. She brought sage from her aunt and helped cleanse the house. And for a while after that, everything stopped. The house had gone quiet. Until we moved again. After we had our first child, my husband and I moved into an apartment. Our unit was connected to another apartment that was empty at the time. Well, it was supposed to be empty. At night, we would hear knocking coming from the empty apartment. We would smell strange odors that were coming from that home. We would even hear children laughing through the walls. Things would bleed into our apartment as well. Sometimes we would sit in the living room and hear what sounded like a ball bouncing across the floor in another room. Our closet doors would open, the hallway door would sway back and forth when no one was touching it. And there were even times I heard knocking at our front door, only to look outside and see nobody was there. Once again, I told my husband's mother, and once again she helped sage and cleanse the area. And once again, everything stopped. Then we became pregnant again. We were outgrowing the apartment and wanted a house, so we moved into one a couple blocks away from my mom. At first, everything was perfect, but eventually, just as it had happened before, it started happening again. The layout of the house was strange. Part of it was raised higher than the rest, which meant that sound carried easily through the home, and countless times, when my husband and I would be in the kitchen while our babies were sleeping, we would hear children laughing coming from our laundry room. Every single time I would make him go check. Every single time, nobody was there. The laughter would only stop the second that he would look. There were also moments when one of us would swear we heard the other calling our name. We would seek the other out and ask, "Did you say something?" The other would be confused because we hadn't. The lights in this house would flicker constantly. We thought maybe there was an electrical issue, especially because we lived near a field, and wondered if mice had damaged the wiring. But when we called an electrician, nothing was wrong. Eventually, I started questioning myself. I was home with 2 toddlers all day while my husband worked, and I wondered if exhaustion was making me imagine things. I even started anxiety medication because I thought maybe it was all in my head. Eventually, we moved. I couldn't handle living there anymore. Now, we are in our forever home. We have 3 beautiful children, and somehow, it's started again. Doors open on their own. I hear humming and singing when my children are asleep. I hear laughter when nobody is awake. I've heard my kids call for me only to walk into their rooms and find them sleeping. I've heard my husband call my name only for him to tell me he never said anything. The worst part is my daughter has started experiencing things too. She refuses to sleep unless her closet door is closed because she said there is someone inside. She says it has red eyes. She says it just stands there watching her.
Good morning, all. First and foremost, spread some joy, tap the heart. My goal for everybody on this app is that everybody spread a little bit of love by tapping the heart. I know that there's a challenge out there, which is like the 365 challenge or something like that. And I think that's wonderful. Absolutely. If you can post every day, post every day. But I think more importantly, we need to share the love. We need to hit that heart. We need to make sure that those creators that we're watching and consuming their content, that we appreciate that. And no effort, just your hand's already there. Just tap the screen right where the little heart is. Just tap it. Anywho, a quick part 2 to the spooky story that I told the other day. I told you where it left off in the house, but there is another piece to that. And that's where my daughter and I went to this metaphysical bookstore around the corner. A few days, maybe a week or so later, on my day off from work, I took her with me. No sitters, so didn't have a choice. Took her with me just to see if I could find a solution to this, because I didn't appreciate whatever this thing was talking to, messing with whatever my child. Like, you messed with me with the TVs and all of that, and there's other things that had happened in the house. My husband had an encounter that chilled him to his core, and I just wanted this thing to not mess with my child. It's one thing if you're messing with me, it's one thing if you're messing with the adults in the home, but now you're messing with my kid, and we can't have that. So I went to this store trying to find some kind of something. Didn't quite know what I was looking for. I was very new into my my own spiritual journey, having deconstructed from the faith I was brought up in, and still deconstructing to this day, by the way. Lots of religious trauma. Anywho, I went into this store just kind of hoping that I could find something. And I felt a little awkward. Maybe it showed. I don't know. But we had just gotten up to the book section of this store, and the proprietor of the store came over and didn't say, "Can I help you? Is there something you're looking for?" Said, "Your daughter's seen something." Y'all, when I tell you, there are people that make you feel some kind of way about when they say something, as evidenced by my video yesterday and the wig I was wearing. This one was a whole nother level. You have a perfect stranger come up to you, and they know that your child has seen spirit. Y'all, no words. Like, I've got goosebumps now just thinking about it. I tried to keep a poker face and was looking at this lady, and I was like, what do you mean seeing something? She's like, your daughter's seen spirit. Okay. And I just kind of stood there. I didn't have words. And she paused, and she's like, do you mind if I talk to your daughter? You know, how much she's little, how much can she comprehend? You know, how verbal is she? And, you know, I said, well, she's, you know, not quite kindergarten level, but, you know, she can answer questions and, you know, in short little sentences. She's just started putting sentences together. I said, if, you know, you can ask her a question in a way she might understand it, you might get your answer. And she's like, do you mind if I talk to her? And I was like, right here? She's like, yeah. I was like, go ahead. And she kind of gets down on her level and she says something to the effect of, and it's been 30 years, y'all, so the memory's a bit fuzzy on the exact phrasing, but she said something to the effect of, did you see something that mom didn't see, or that your mommy didn't see, or something like that? And my daughter just kind of looked at her and kind of puzzled, and she kind of looked back up at me, and I was like, you can answer the question. And I don't think she knew what she was asking. So the lady kind of caught on to this and rephrased it. And I forget the exact wording, but it was something around the, you know, did you talk to a person that was there and then suddenly wasn't there, that went away quickly? Something like that. Is dumbed down enough for a toddler to understand. And finally, you know, my toddler finally understood what was being asked. And she said, the man was there, then the man was gone. And when I tell you, I felt every hair on my whole entire body stand on its end. It was like I was reliving that moment there in the house when the door flung open all over again. And she asked me, where'd the man go? Absolutely just stopped me in my tracks. And the lady said, okay. And she stood up. And she asked me, she's like, do you think that this is harmful? I was like, I don't know if this is harmful, but I don't appreciate whoever or whatever this is dealing with my child and not me. That's not okay. I wouldn't want anybody to deal with my child that I haven't dealt with, right? Like, you're not gonna do that. No, we don't do that. And she's like, okay. And then she explains that she's a part of this paranormal group and they investigate homes. And I was like, I can't pay. She's like, we don't ask for payment. You know, some people choose to donate if they have it, but we don't ask for payment. As far as we're concerned, research is the payment enough. And I said, well, let me talk to my husband first. So went home, talked to my husband about, you know, what she said, what happened, told him the whole spiel about she pegged Tyler for having seen something, and explained this all to him. And he after a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of convincing, he was like, if it makes this thing go away, I'm here for it. And so next day I went back. I believe I was on my way into work that day, but I went early so I could stop by and you know, said, yes, we would love to have you out. Here's our address. You know, here's my phone number. I'm working on such and such and such and such days. Like, give me a call and we'll have you out. So they came out to the house and while we were there, and went through the whole entire house. And the biggest hits they got with the technology that they had at the time, they didn't have the infrared cameras and stuff that were publicly available. They were around, but they were more scientific than anything and super expensive, so couldn't really do that. Anywho, but they did have things like EMF meters and tape recorders and things like that, and video cassette cameras were still a thing. So they came out. They didn't get anything on the camera or the cassette tape that I remember, but they did get several spikes. They got a spike in my daughter's room. They got a spike in our room, which makes complete sense, in several different spots. And she told me that the man that lived in that house prior, himself. And we did eventually, we cleansed the house, we saged it, salt watered the house, and we were able to clear that energy out of the house. But when I tell you, y'all, that was one of the freakiest experiences I've ever had. It was one of the freakiest experiences I've ever had. So, that's my part 2. Tell me your ghost story. What is it?
9 months ago, I almost became a true crime documentary, and I'm finally ready to talk about it. For some context of how the night got started, I come back to my apartment complex at about 8 or 9 p.m. I see these chairs sitting by the dump in the front, they're patio chairs, and I had just moved in. I was like, oh, somebody's getting rid of these, like they're in good shape, they're clean, so I'm going to take them. I need patio furniture. I'm gonna take them back to my apartment. So I pick them up and I carry them across the complex at night, all the way back to my apartment, and I put them out on my patio. Now, me and my boyfriend live together, but he's out of town at this point, so I try to FaceTime him to show him the chairs that I just got, but he doesn't answer. I don't think much of it, so I decide to just start doing what I need to do around the house, so I start folding my laundry on top of my bed. For context, I was standing right in front of my bed, and I had the light on in here, the window open here, and I was folding laundry in front of this patio, which was completely dark and I couldn't see outside. So about 30 minutes goes by, my boyfriend starts calling me back, and I'm like, oh, perfect, I'll go outside and I'll show him the chairs. Now I'm gonna give y'all a little reenactment of what happened. Like I said, I'm standing here folding my laundry, my boyfriend starts calling me, so I walk around this wall, and I head over here to the living room patio door. So I flip on the light, and I see something move right here. So I kind of do like a back and forth to see if it was my own shadow, and I didn't see it move again. So there's a corner right there that I can't see, and I decide I'm gonna walk back around into my room to investigate what's in that corner before I go outside. So I leave this door unlocked as it was, and I walk back into my room. So I walk back in here, and I see something in this corner, which this corner is always empty, just like it is now. But I see something black that's in this corner, and it almost looks like some kind of object's like leaned up against the wall, and I'm like, what is that? Like, I'm wondering if my boyfriend put something out there. But I just stand here and I stare at it for a few seconds, and finally the object turns around. And when it turns around, I realize that it is a man dressed in all black with his hoodie on, with a bandana covering his face, staring at me. So I make eye contact with this man, scream a blood-curdling scream, and all I can think in my head is, oh my god, the door is unlocked on the other side. I have to get to the other side. I have to lock it before he can come inside. So I run back around the wall. Embarrassingly, I did slip on the rug that's in the living room, and I fell, smacked into the glass. Managed to lock this while I was laying up against the glass on the ground. And the man runs and starts to jump off right here. So he jumps off, and I'm still on the phone with my boyfriend, so I'm like, oh my god, I have to call 911, and I just hang up. I don't give him any context, because I'm not thinking at this point. I call 911, they come out, they search the woods, they look around, they don't see anything, they don't find anybody, and to this day, I don't know who that man is, and I never have gotten any answers to why he was actually up there. So naturally, as anybody would, I have come up with a few theories of why I think he was up there, and all of my theories that make the most sense are actually the scariest. So a few key factors. This happened around 10 p.m. at night. The guy did not have any kind of bag or anything on him that I could see. Like when he was turned around jumping, his back was plain. He didn't have anything on him. And he was also very aware that I was home and awake. So those are the factors that have kind of led me to the theory of he wasn't here to take my stuff, because typically, from what I've heard, most robberies will take place during the day. They don't want you to be home because they just want to take your stuff and they don't want to run into you. The people who are willing to rob you while you're home most likely will not have an issue hurting you to get your stuff. So if it was a robbery, I was about to get, I don't know, knocked out, murdered, I don't know. But because I didn't see a bag on him, that really leads me to believe that he wasn't there for my stuff and that he was there for me. And what his intentions were, I have no idea. I really don't want to know. It could be something unspeakable, or it could just be some creep who just wanted a closer look at this girl who was home alone. It could be literally anything. But based off of context clues and what I could assume
would have happened if I would have went to sleep with my door unlocked. I don't know. But anyway, that's the story of maybe one of the scariest things I've ever gone through in my life, and how I almost became a true crime documentary. If you like this kind of content, make sure you hit follow, because I have plenty of scary stories that I am happy to share with y'all, so you can laugh at my pain.
This is probably going to be a 10-minute video, but I'm seeing a bunch of people share their ghost stories that are like so crazy that people wouldn't believe that they're true. And my family has one. I don't even believe in ghosts, but there's actual like police involved. I don't want to reveal too many details because I want to respect the people that were affected by it, but there are like news stories, etc. It's a really insane story. I want to preface by saying I try not to believe in ghosts. Like I think it's a defense mechanism, but I honestly am a huge believer in like the theory that a lot of people that have ghost experiences live in places with like high carbon monoxide poisoning, which is why it's always like older homes, which that can lead to like hallucinations. It's a whole rabbit hole. But this one is like real. So my older sister, when I was in middle school, she was in college, and she lived in a house in Carlsbad with her friends. Funny enough, Carlsbad would eventually be where the Paranormal Activity series took place, and it's so eerily similar. My sister was living there with her like friends, roommates, and she was upstairs, another girl was upstairs, and they would always kind of hear odd things in the house, but it wasn't enough to like raise the alarm bells. But there was one night where someone walked up the stairs, they went into the bathroom, and my sister thought it was just her roommate, but the person began like turning the faucet on, turning it off, like opening cupboards, then closing them. But then it started to get more like repetitive and aggressive, and eventually she heard footsteps and someone like jiggling with her doorknob, but her door was locked. And then the person walks to the other side of the hallway to get into her roommate's room. The door opens and the girl screams, and she uses like the joined balcony to run into my sister's room, and they call 911. They weren't able to figure out what exactly was going down, and so one of the girls in the house, who was super religious, ended up having someone, I believe it was like Catholic, like they came and they blessed the house basically. Now, important context is they had one room to fill downstairs. There is like a big house, a bunch of them lived there. And they got this one guy off of Craigslist to move into that room downstairs, and he seemed fine, but he would always come home from work with like mysterious injuries that weren't really explained, and he kept to himself. But the night before the person was gonna come to bless the house, he just like went missing. He left his motorcycle in the garage, he left his cat at the house, he was never found again. His girlfriend came looking for him, his work came looking for him, they filed a missing persons report. No one ever really figured out where he was. And now, you're not supposed to do this, but one of the girls in the house, they kept sending his credit card bills there, and I guess like one of the girls in the house opened it up just to see like where he was, and he was going like in circles around the country. So they were kind of like, okay, he's either chasing something or like running from something, but no one ever heard from him. Now the person that blessed the house was going room to room, and when they went into his room, they were like, oh, like this is the source of the problem, like someone's doing some weird stuff in this room. How they figured that out, I don't know. Do I believe it? I don't know. But they said weird stuff was going on in that room specifically. If you thought that was bad, here's where it gets even weirder. So my sister and all her friends move out of the house, the lease ends, and I mean, I would go and spend the night there when I was visiting her. Like, I'd been in the house, it had weird vibes, whatever. But a couple years went by, and I never really thought about the house ever again. Until my sister came to visit, and she was like, hey, like, do you remember that one weird house that I lived in that you would visit? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, dude, look it up on the news. Now this is where it gets really dark, and I want to like respect the people involved. But essentially what happened is the landlord, who my sister spoke to, said was super nice, super cordial, super normal. He moved into the house when their lease ended and all of the girls moved out. He moved in with his daughter, and then they wanted to fill one of the bedrooms upstairs, and so they got a college student guy to move into the room upstairs. Now, of course, the plausible explanation is like this is probably just a weird mental health, like a real mental health crisis that led to weird behavior. But in the news, it said that he unalived the college kid that moved upstairs. But the series of events leading up to that was also very bizarre, is reported by the neighbors. This was in, I believe it was like 2010, when Ring cameras were kind of becoming a thing, but not huge yet. And there was an influx of neighbors that had Ring cameras or just security cameras installed around their house, because specifically that guy, the landlord, was becoming aggressive, walking up and down the street, kind of grunting, talking to himself, going up to doors, just very odd behavior. And the night that this altercation happened, it was reported that the landlord was in the backyard chanting and dancing around a fire pit, and that was the noise was kind of what led to the altercation between him and the guy renting the room upstairs. But like in the news articles, it says that this roommate really kept to himself. There wasn't that many issues. And I don't want to say the word because I might get flagged, but like you can look up news reports that the bathroom and like the upstairs area where it took place, there was red stuff that was drawn all over the walls, and they just said it depicted weird symbols. They never described what those symbols might be. So the guy now 10 years later is obviously still in prison. The roommate unfortunately passed away, and I believe he's even said that he doesn't have any recollection of that time and what was going on. And so again, to me, in reality, it's clearly maybe just like a mental health crisis. But with the other factors involved, it's all just so weird that this like really normal guy could move back into his house after there was some dark stuff happening in the house, and weird, like just like there'd be footsteps if you were home alone. My sister said it was just like but it wasn't a calming presence. It was like a dark presence, kind of antagonizing. And then what would eventually happen in the house? Maybe it was like a weird time warp of what was to come in the future, and it was just like harnessing this energy. I don't know. Again, I don't really believe in ghosts. I try not to believe in this stuff, but it's the only thing in my life that I've been secondhand to that I was like, what the heck? Like, I was in the room. I spent time in the room, in the bathroom where this happened years later, and it's just so unfortunate for everyone involved. I think about the daughter. I think about the victim's family. It's an awful story, and it's the only thing that makes me question what was going on there. And then it was even weirder when years later, like, Paranormal Activity would come out and the houses looked similar to the house that it took place in, and the whole premise of Paranormal Activity was like odd things happening in a house, and these security cameras and like nanny cams were capturing it, and this story was just so parallel to what happened in that house. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Let me know if you guys want more of these like in-depth 10-minute story times, but to this day I don't really know what I believe, but that it was an awful situation. So let me know your thoughts.
Her husband's family didn't want her dead. They wanted something much worse. I am back with another spooky story. This one is another submission from Lagos, Nigeria. We're gonna call the person who submitted this story Fatima. So Fatima says after years of thinking about the situation, knows exactly what happened to her. And it's nothing short of a miracle that she is here today to tell this story. Fatima says she's only alive because her family refused to give up on her. Well, Fatima grew up in Lagos, Nigeria in a loud, protective family. Her grandmother used to always say, if an entire family smiles too perfectly, look for the person they're hiding. And remember that quote, because that would become the theme of this story. So Fatima gets older and she meets this guy. We're gonna call him Tunde. Tunde was charming, educated, successful, everything her parents prayed that she would find in a man. So Tunde and Fatima started dating. Things were great, but there was only one problem. Tunde's family hated Fatima. His mother never looked at her directly in the eye. His sisters would suddenly stop talking whenever she enters the room. Every visit to their compound felt like she was interrupting something. So Tunde and Fatima continued dating, and they were dating for a while before he proposed. So fast forward to the afternoon of their wedding. Fatima's father pulled her aside and said to her, "I don't trust that family." Fatima asks her father why, and her father tells her sometimes your spirit notices danger before your eyes do, and told her don't go through with this. But Fatima just thought that her father was just being dramatic. Fatima married Tunde anyway. So the first few months of her marriage, Fatima says were wonderful. Then his mother insisted that they moved into the family compound until they built their own house. And that was the beginning. Every morning, Tunde's mother bought Fatima a herbal tea. Fatima just remembering it tasting bitter. This mother-in-law refused anybody else to prepare Fatima's meals. She always sat there to watch Fatima eat her plate to its entirety. About 2 weeks of Fatima living there, Fatima stopped feeling like herself. She says her body became very heavy. Her thoughts felt slow. Sometimes she would stare at a wall for hours without realizing. She would hear people talking around her. However, Fatima could not answer. Fatima was in this weird zombie-like state. Fatima describes it as being trapped inside of her own body. It just seemed like Fatima was slowly but surely losing it. So around the time that this was happening to Fatima, Tunde acted devastated. He cried in front of everyone, held her hand, and told everyone that he was praying for her. And they only told her family that she was a little sick, and never actually went into detail of what was happening to her. At night, she would hear Tunde whisper things into her ears. He would whisper things like, "Just stay asleep. You don't need to wake up. You belong to us now." Fatima wanted to scream, but she could not. And Fatima was aware of everything going on around her. She just couldn't react, couldn't do or say anything. Well, days turned into months, and Tunde's family began making every decision for Fatima. They controlled her bank account, they sold jewelry that her grandmother left for her, they transferred property into Tunde's name. Everyone around believed that Fatima just suffered from some mysterious illness. This story is really long, and if it's after a certain amount of time, TikTok is not going to push this video. I'm literally filming part 2 right now, and I'm going to drop part 2 once this video reaches 50 comments.
Story time on how my mom adopted my sister from the Appalachian Mountains, and she's been missing for 2 years now. My mom has always wanted another kid, but she just could never conceive one. Just because of complications I'm not gonna get into because that's her business. Yeah, my mom literally tried everything. She slept with every man she could possibly ever sleep with. My mom knew this one friend. Mind you, this guy is really creepy. He he does weird shit. My mom knew he had connections with people with adoption. We're gonna name this guy Jimmy because his name started off with a J. My mom texts Jimmy, she's like, "Hey, I really want another kid." And Jimmy was like, "Okay, yeah, I have connections with people, let me set you up with something." And my mom was like, "Okay, great, but can you keep it in my price range?" Price range was about $1,000. So 2 weeks go by and Jimmy's like, "Hey, I found this one family, but you're gonna be weirded out. They're in the Appalachian Mountains." And I was just a little kid. I didn't know what the fuck the Appalachian Mountains was, but my mom did. My mom did not care. She was determined to have another kid. So my mom books a ticket to go to Tennessee because that's where the Appalachian Mountains that we were going to was located at. It was in Tennessee. So she was like, "Okay, Megan, let's go to fucking Tennessee. Let's go get your baby sister." So we go to the location that Jimmy said to go to. Mind you, it was nighttime. It was so fucking scary as a 10-year-old going in the Appalachian Mountains to pick up a fucking kid. My mom are literally hiking through the mountains and we start hearing really weird scary shit sketched out. I'm fucking terrified. Finally get to the location and it's a little cabin and 2 old people come outside with the little baby, my sister. And mind you, these people look so different. They don't look like people. I'm telling you right now, that motherfucker over there type shit, look like aliens. They don't look like people. At this point, my mom is really sketched out, but she's like, "Okay, here's the money." They just told us to have fun. And we go back, we go to the car, we go back home. And everything is good for a few months, and then we start noticing that my little sister has a lot of behavioral issues. She started biting walls and taking chunks out of the walls, and she broke her teeth. Another thing, she started growing a lot of hair, excessive amounts of hair. She was a damn fucking werewolf or something. I mean, we had so much problems with her. My mom literally gave up on her, and I had to take care of her. I was the mommy bitch, mamacita. Then one day, me and her got in a big fight. It was a terrible fight. It got really physical. I got hurt really bad, and I haven't seen her since. It's been 2 years. Cumshot, can you please come back? I miss you so much. You see this? Please just reach out to me. I miss you.
Staffordshire hides stories most locals won't walk alone after dark. and some of them are still being reported today. For generations, people claim to see a woman wandering the streets of Burslem with a milk pail balanced on her head. Some believed an exorcism finally ended the haunting. But years later, another dark figure appeared around the same churchyard. Drivers along Ashbank Road still report seeing an old man carrying a lantern, slowly searching the roadside. Near Burntwood, witnesses describe a tall hooded figure standing silently beside the road. He never moves, never speaks. Look away for just a second and he's gone. These are just 3 of Staffordshire's real hauntings. Watch all 10 stories. On our YouTube channel Spooky Britain, there is a link in the comments.
Okay, this is the story time to the video I posted before this. So, y'all get that because it's long. So basically, me and my friends were, like, we've known about this church for, like, ever. And it's like, we've known about it for a really long time. There was me and 3 other people at the time. The video that was on the post down there wasn't from the time that this had happened. It was just showing the church, but it's the same one. So anyways, there's 4 of us, and we decided to go to the church, and one of our friends decided to disrespect the church and just say some things that should not have been said. He was telling whatever was in there to do bad things. We'll just say that, because I don't think I can say this on TikTok. Anyways, after he did that, we low-key got a little scared, because, like, it's common sense not to do that in abandoned places like that, especially a church. So we all got, like, a little freaked out at the time, because why are you doing this? So I had brought along with me a, I don't know if you guys know what it is. It's called a spirit box. If you watch Sam and Colby or anything like that, you probably do know what it is. Anyways, we have one of those with us, and I had it like set up where like a preacher would be standing. There's a little windowsill, and I had it set on the windowsill. And we were sitting there asking it questions, and it was answering back fluently, which should have been the first red flag to leave, because we asked it if it wanted us to leave, and it said yes like multiple times, but again, we were stupid and we should have listened to it the first time they told us it wanted us to leave. But we did not leave. We stayed for like another hour maybe. So we had asked it like one specific question, and it was, what do you want? And it said something very not good. And anyways, so after it said that, we finally got like scared enough to leave. And so we ended up leaving because no. And the one friend that was disrespecting the church, he was on a 4-wheeler, and the church is really old. Little backstory to the church. Okay, so the church was built in like 1870 something, and then it was abandoned in like 1920 to 1930, somewhere in between it. I remember, but I really don't want to go back and look, so I'm not going to. Anyways, so we leave, and us 4 friends are all staying, and we're staying at my house. And we think like, oh, we're fine, we're good, it's all over with, oh well, we're just not gonna go back there because of the thing that the friend did. That, no. We're all sitting in my bed, and we're all like trying to fit in the bed, because let me tell you, my bed was a full, we were all trying to fit in the bed, it wasn't working, but we tried anyways, and like we were all staggered. So I was up one way, the person next to me had their feet up by my head, and they were laid down, they put their head at the end of the bed, and then it was like staggered with 4 people like that. And anyways, one person had his feet at the end of the bed, and the other girl had her head at the end of the bed where her hands were, and he started cussing her out, and I'm like, what? And he's like yelling at her, saying that she scratched his foot, or she hurt his foot, or like scratched him, because she had her nails done. So anyways, he's like freaking out because he thought that she just hurt him for no reason. And he has Nike socks on, and we like he picks up his foot, everyone gets up and like, what are you doing? And he pulls down his Nike sock. You smell burnt hair as soon as that Nike sock comes off. Like, you know the smell of burnt hair, that's what it smells like. After that, we look at it, and it's no hair. There's a red scratch mark on his foot, and it's like this big. Like, literally, imagine this is like his ankle. It was on his ankle, where his sock was. And it was like that, and his hair was just burnt off in the part that got scratched. And you don't burn off hair with a scratch. That's just not how that works, especially under a sock. That's what got me. Anyway, so we were all freaked out. We were all scared. We didn't go to bed that night. Next day comes up. We all have school the next day, by the way. This is like on a Thursday night, and we have school on Friday. So we all get up to go to school. The one friend that was disrespecting the church, he gets really, really sick. The rest of us felt bad, like nauseated almost the whole day, but we weren't like throwing up sick like he was. So he ended up going home. And he goes home and he's like sick, like badly sick, like fever, throwing up, everything. And he had like been calling me nonstop, like throughout in the middle of the school day. It was probably like 12, and he was just calling me nonstop, and I was like, I can't answer in school, I'm gonna get my phone taken. But thank God I'm a great friend, because I answered. And well, first I didn't answer the phone. He sent me a bunch of videos, and the videos of the doors is what he sent me. And so I was freaked out. And again, like all you guys probably think it was fake. I no, it was not fake. Anyways, so he sends me those pictures of the doors, and I'll put those in right now. So after that, and nobody's home with him, by the way. He has a little brother. Little brother was at school. He has an older brother. He was in a grade above us, or above me. And his brother, both of his brothers were at school. I know that for a fact because I saw them there, and I talked to them about what happened the night before. So I know for a fact that they were at school while he was at home alone. Literally, I left in the middle of the day at school because I was genuinely worried about him, because he was saying that his front door slammed, his dog was barking at something in the hallway, like just a bunch of stuff was going on. And so I was like, okay, I'll come get you, I'll leave, and I will come get you, and you will not have to stay there. Because one, I didn't want to be at school, and two, like I was genuinely worried about him. Because what do you mean like your doors are getting slammed in your face? I go get him, and everything's like, he comes and he stays at my house for quite literally, I kid you not, he stayed at my house for 2 months. Just about 2 months, a little over 2 months. Again, like I'm freaked out. I'm scared because what is going on? And I like don't fully understand what is going on, because I didn't like know anything back then. I didn't know like about any of that stuff. I watched some Sam and Colby, and I thought I was ready to go bust some ghosts. Okay, anyways, so he's staying with me, and I remember this one specific night that okay, so he was staying on the couch, and I was in my room, and all of a sudden I hear him screaming at me, like just angry screaming at me, telling me to stop, because he's freaked out now. He's like scarred from this that happened to him at his house, which I would be too. I don't blame him, but it's looking kind of his fault, but oh well. So he starts like yelling at me, and so I yell from my room. I'm like, what? And he's like, I just saw you, you're trying to scare me. Boo, I'm in my bed. I'm in my bed. And so I get scared, and I'm like, I'm not getting up. And so I call him, and I'm like, what? Why are you yelling at me? And he's like, Hayden, I saw you, but there's like one hallway behind the couch to the front door. And he thought I was peeking around that corner of the hallway, looking at him from like behind the couch in that hallway. Anyways, so he's like yelling at me. I'm like freaked out because I'm not the one looking at him from behind the couch, and he swears that someone was looking at him from behind the couch, and I was like, absolutely not. This thing likes you, and it's attached to you. So anyways, I did a bunch of research. So basically, I found out that abandoned churches are like literal playgrounds for just demons and bad spirits and stuff like that, because the church was abandoned. And there's a verse in the Bible that literally says that like an abandoned church is one of the worst sins that you can commit. So yeah, I learned that, and we should have never went there. And anyways, we all decide to go back to the church. I know you're thinking we're crazy, but listen. We go back to the church. We have our Bibles. We have our I don't know. We had all the things that you would do at church. We brought it. And we took all that stuff back to the church, and we prayed. We did Bible study. We did Anything like everything that you do in church, we did there, and it all stopped. We apologized. We said, please stay here. You can all call us home. I'm pretty sure we did all that we were supposed to do. Anyways, there is another part to this that happened like 2 years later involving the church again and the same kid who did that to the church. So if you guys want to hear about that part and you liked this piece of story time, let me know in the comments. And yeah, but that is all that I have to say for it, and I hope you guys liked it.
I'm Martha, 55 years old, living alone in a small house in a sparsely populated neighborhood. Opposite my house is a similar house belonging to a girl named Ashley. That young girl moved here not long ago. From the first day, I noticed that she was always alone. Every day, Ashley leaves the house early in the morning and returns late at night, always looking exhausted and drained. I don't know why, but I feel a special concern for her. Maybe Ashley reminds me of my daughter, who passed away from a severe mental illness 3 years ago. A young girl living alone in this area, with no friends or relatives visiting. So I often try to find ways to talk to her, asking a few questions, sometimes asking for a bit of spice, or asking her to check something in the house for me. But I noticed Ashley always kept a certain distance from me. She wasn't rude, but she never truly opened up. Every time I looked at her, I always felt something was wrong. One night, while I was reading a book, I heard loud arguing coming from Ashley's house. A man's voice rang out, harsh and threatening. Then, there was the sound of furniture crashing, dragging across the floor. I jumped up, my heart pounding. I tried to listen more clearly. Then came a frightening silence. An unsettling feeling arose, making it impossible for me to stay still. My instincts urged me to do something. I quickly ran to Ashley's house. But as I neared the door, I stopped. A stream of thought, like an invisible thread, pulled me back, making me hesitate. The house was dark, silent, as if nothing had happened. I tiptoed around to the side window, leaned down, and pressed my face against the glass to try to peer into the darkness inside. But all I saw was an empty space, no one inside. After a moment of hesitation, guilt began to swell, and I quietly returned to my house, burdened with unanswerable questions. In the following days, Ashley seemed more frantic than usual. She always kept the curtains tightly shut, entered and exited the house with a watchful eye, occasionally looking around as if someone were watching her. I thought about asking if something was wrong, but she kept pulling further away from me. Then, one night, when I went out to take the trash, I saw Ashley dragging a large trash bag to the back of the house. She had her back to me, but her skinny shoulders were trembling under the streetlight. I was about to call out to her, but then I stopped. A feeling of unease crept over me.
My family is from Sinaloa, Mexico. I had celebrated my quinceañera over there since we don't have any family here in the States. A few days after my quinceañera, most of my relatives who had traveled for the party were still staying with us at my nana's house. Since there were so many kids, we all slept together in the living room. That night, we were just hanging out and getting ready for bed when my dad came in, almost running, asking, "¿Dónde está tu mamá? Where's your mom?" I told him she was next door. He rushed out again. We didn't think much of it until a few minutes later when my mom came back inside, looking pale and shaken. She told us my dad had just come to her, terrified, saying he had been chased by a ghost car. There's a small town near ours with a dangerous curve in the road that people say is haunted because of how many accidents happen there. My mom said my dad had been driving along that stretch when he saw the headlights of a black SUV appear behind him. You have to drive slowly there, but this car started speeding up, getting closer and closer to my dad. My dad sped up too, but when he realized he couldn't make the next turn at that speed, he slowed down and pulled off to the side. That's when he saw the SUV drive straight through his car, went off the road, and suddenly disappear. After my mom told us what happened, everyone was already on edge. But of course, what do a bunch of kids do when they're scared? We start telling scary stories. Among us was my cousin Laura, and her brother suddenly said, half jokingly, "Plebes, ya no hay que hablar de espantos, porque a Laura se le mete la Laurita." Guys, let's stop talking about ghosts, because Laurita tries to enter Laura. We all laughed, but I knew what he meant. Laurita was their cousin who had passed away years ago. Laura and Laurita had been very close, and ever since her death, Laura would sometimes talk to her in her sleep. So when her brother said that, we just brushed it off and kept talking, even though Laura was already fast asleep on the floor. Then she started giggling. Her brother warned us again to stop, but we didn't. A few seconds later, Laura sat straight up without even using her arms and said,
Laurita se quiere meter.
Laurita wants to come in. Her brother told her quietly, No, dile que se vaya. No, tell her to leave. She laid back down. That's when everything went crazy. None of the neighbors owned dogs or horses, but suddenly we heard dogs barking and horses running outside. Then the front door started rattling. A few minutes later, Laura sat up again and said, Laurita, ya se metió. The barking grew louder, the horses sounded closer, and through the small gap under the bathroom door, where the light was still on, we could see two shadows of feet standing there. We all started crying and praying together, El Padre Nuestro, holding hands. And then, it all stopped. The barking faded, the air felt lighter, and it suddenly became easier to breathe. The next morning, we told Laura what had happened, but she had no memory of any of it. To this day, I still feel tightness in my chest whenever I think about that night.
I've told a lot of scary stories in my lifetime, but stories like this tend to chill me to the bone. If you're new here, my name is Sparrow, and at night we tend to get spooky out in the woods or wherever there is some spooky activity, and this is my first episode of my series called Sparrow After Dark. So grab your favorite cozy hoodie or your favorite cozy blanket and settle in for another spooky Appalachia story. This story comes from someone in our community named Anthony. Hey Sparrow, my name is Anthony, and I've been following you for a while now. Me and my cousins love watching your content, from the spooky woods all the way up to your paranormal spooky barns. This story actually takes place in North Carolina in the Smoky Mountains with me, my two cousins, and my uncle. Every weekend we would go to North Carolina in the Smoky Mountains to our cabin. Me and my uncle and my two cousins decided one night that we were going to go take the canoe out in the middle of the lake. This was a normal event that we would do every Saturday night whenever we went camping. But unfortunately, we noticed as soon as we got to the lake, something just seemed off. It wasn't only the fog rising off the water making everything spooky, but it was also the noises of nature that we could hear walking around us. We were all so spooked out that it pretty much got to a point to where we almost changed our minds and turned around and put the canoe back on the rack. But us being us and the little daredevils that we were, we decided, of course, let's go out anyway. And that's when I realized that this may have been a bad idea. As we were unloading the canoe and putting it into the water, we started hearing what sounded like footsteps walking around us in the leaves. At first, we didn't think anything of it until we started hearing the sounds of scraping, kind of like the sound that deer antlers make when they're scraping their antlers on the trees. And now my uncle wasn't somebody who generally got scared. He's somebody that normally makes fun of us when we get scared. So we started to get a little paranoid when he ended up being the one to get very scared. That being said, my uncle did carry a firearm with him, so because of that, we thought that we were safe. So we lowered the canoe into the water, we all get in, and we start rowing out to the middle of the lake. And that's when my uncle said, all right, everybody get your fishing poles ready. We're rowing the canoe into the middle of the lake. My uncle decided to bait his line and cast his first line. As we're waiting there patiently for him to reel it back in to recast, that is when we heard the sounds of those footsteps walking around us again, and the leaves were crunching louder and louder. I looked at my uncle and I said, hey, something isn't right here. I really think we should take the boat, row it back in, and get back up to the cabin. My uncle turned around and looked at me and said, I think you're right. As we all start panicking and we start rowing the boat back towards the dock, that is when we heard the sound of what sounded like a very heavy creature running through the forest. Of all the years that I've known my uncle, I have never once known him to say faster, faster, and start rowing the boat as quick as we can, because I can tell by the look in his eyes that he was very scared. As we're rowing the boat faster to get back towards the dock, we were not even out there for 10 minutes, not even that. We were rowing the boat faster, and you can hear the sounds of what sounds like trees literally falling over next to the lake. At that point, we all start screaming and we all start freaking out, and my uncle is screaming at us to row even faster. Get the canoe all the way back to the dock, and we were so scared that we ended up just leaving it in the water. All jumped onto the dock and started running back towards the cabin. And as we were running back towards the cabin, you can hear the sounds of logs and sticks breaking. And as we heard those breaking noises, once again, you can hear the sounds of old rotten trees falling over, as if whatever was chasing us was really big. I have never ran so fast in my life, and I have never heard my uncle start to cry like he did that night. As we are running back towards the cabin, you can hear the sound of footsteps creeping up behind us, as if whatever this thing was bigger than us and running faster than us. We finally reached the porch to the cabin, and that was when we ran inside and we slammed the door shut. We all looked at each other in a form of panic, and that's when I looked at my uncle and I realized that he, the fearless man, was actually crying. At that point, all of us were actually crying because we were so scared. The worst part about this is when I asked my uncle, "What do you think that was?" he looked me dead in my eyes and said, "You don't want to know." That moment scared me more than anything, because it made me feel like that he knew something that we didn't, and he didn't want to scare us because we were only teenagers. I can tell you that ever since that night, my uncle has only been back to that cabin one time, and he refuses to talk to me about whatever that was that night. And the scary part about this is that he hasn't been the same ever since. I wish I can give you a better ending, Sparrow, but that story has always terrified me, and you are the first person I've ever had the guts to tell. Fortunately, but unfortunately, the story actually ends just like that. But to be honest with you guys, that story scares the crap out of me, because I don't know how y'all would feel, but I have been in many scenarios when I'm running through the woods, as a lot of you know when you're watching my live streams, that there is a lot of things that run up behind me and you don't know what they are. And there is nothing creepier than when something runs up behind you and you can hear it, but you can't see it. But of course, you guys, if you want to, please send me any spooky stories that you have to the email up at the top or the one that I'm tagging down at the bottom. They do not have to be about the Appalachian Mountains. They can be anything. But I hope you guys enjoyed our first episode, and thank you, Anthony, for sending your story in. And as always, guys, I hope you enjoy, from here on out, my series, Sparrow After Dark.
You got your late night snack? This is Last Thread Before Bed, episode 40. This is a little series where I read scary stories from Reddit before I go to bed, and I try not to get nightmares. So boom, let's get into it. So tonight's scary story is on the subreddit Real Ghost Stories, and it's from user Puzzleheaded Fudge 15, and this story is called Ghost in the Parkway. Just 5 days ago now, I was driving home from work around 9 to 10 at night, and right through this wooded parkway was my house. A creek runs down on the right side of it. It's actually a very beautiful spot. But on this night, I believe I saw a ghost darting into the woods near the creek. It presented itself like a glowy white humanoid figure, and it almost appeared to have been wearing a dress. I thought it might be an animal, but it was much too tall and very much almost looked like a human. What was weird about it was that it was pitch black outside and the figure was glowing. It didn't scare me much, but I did stop the car to stare into the woods and there was nothing. Such a shocker. I came home, told my family about it and such. Wasn't a huge deal. As I said, it didn't scare me and it seemed pretty passive. However, my sister said she had seen the same thing in damn near the same spot 2 years ago. Yeah, now you have another problem on your hands. But yesterday, the parkway was flooded with police, right across from the high school baseball field and near the woods, right where I saw my ghost. And it turns out they found the body of a 50-year-old woman down there, through the woods close to the creek. It was her skeletal remains, and her ID was right next to her. It begs the question, how long was she down there? A place where kids walk home from school all the time, that I drive past every day. And how did she end up there? They're still investigating, as it was just discovered. I have no choice but to believe that she was the ghost my sister and I had both saw. Super, super freaky, especially considering it's just a short walk down the road by my house. I'm talking less than a mile. I hope she gets her piece. That was really creepy, but that was short and sweet, so let's go ahead and read a second story. So this story is from the same thread, and it is titled Late Night Voice Outside in Our Yard, from Worried Wishbone 643. Now I noticed this same person has a few different stories on here, So probably another time I'll read those other stories they have posted. Here we go. So this one is kind of short. My step-siblings came over like they did every other weekend and stayed. It was late when I had gotten up to go to the bathroom. I laid back down in my bed to go to sleep. Mind you, it's summer, so I had my window open. Just before I could go back to sleep, I hear a faint, "Help me." So I get back up and look outside since that's where I heard it from. We live in the country, so unless someone was on our property, I shouldn't have heard anything. I heard it again, but a little louder coming from by our garage. I heard it 2 more times before I closed my window and started off to sleep. You slept? Are you used to this? Just as I dozed off, my little stepsister started to scream, woke up the whole house. When we all got up to her room, she told us she had heard someone or something trying to open the door. My room was closest to the door she was talking about, but I wasn't able to hear the knob turn. She never heard the voice, but I did tell her, and she told us that she had just woke up and heard the knob jiggling and started to freak out. That is a short and scary story. But Worried Wishbone 643, let's talk, because how are you sleeping when you're hearing this "help me"? Okay, so I'm actually not the first person to notice this. So Heron YX commented on this. Well, as to the voice, it's strange that you could go to sleep okay with a disembodied voice calling for help. As to the doorknob turning, why would that make your stepsister scream when she knew that other people were in the house? There's nothing inherently scary about a doorknob turning unless the door was glass and she could see that there was no one there. Story doesn't really make sense to me, sorry. Worried Wishbone clapped back. Worried Wishbone said, well, considering it was early morning on a weekend, and when I say early, I mean like 2, maybe 3 a.m., no one was awake, let alone outside, and we live in the middle of nowhere. I was only awake because I woke up in my bathroom, and then was trying to go back to sleep when I heard whatever it was outside. Why would I put my stuff up here? Because everyone's trying to shut it down, but everything else is so scary. Everything I put up here is real. Regardless of what anybody says, you don't like it, don't read it. I mean, someone else replied and said, you're right. On that note, follow for more scary stories.